Okay.
Here you go.
All right.
And tonight's book is
Kindred by Octavia E. Butler, which is a book about a woman who is transported to pre-Civil War. What state is she in? I forget.
What state?
Maryland.
Maryland.
I don't think so.
Uh,
Transported to.
yes.
She's in California.
Yeah, she lives in California, but in 1976, I think.
Yes.
I think so.
But she's transported to 1814. I think it's the first year she's transported to Maryland in order to save the life of one of her ancestors so that she can be born.
Mm-hmm. Then he turns out to be a white jerk.
Pretty much.
It's,
Wow.
he has feelings.
Mainly about himself.
mainly, yeah.
In total disregard for
He was
anybody
raised
else.
by a white jerk.
But he
So
means well.
How
He means well.
often does it happen that a white jerk, raised by a white jerk, becomes not a white jerk?
Oh, you're talking about the Missouri legislature?
No, he's
Not
a
the
jerk.
book, Jason.
Skipper, no. Skipper, down. Hey.
I mean, it does take generations to change a white jerk's attitude. Lots of generations.
I mean, I thought this was interesting because, like, she's a science fiction writer. You know, I wasn't thinking about that as I was reading the book, you know, because I didn't know anything about it.
Let me get some.
What's her name? Octavia
Butler?
Yeah. And so I kind of looked at Wikipedia today on her body of work. She's won all these awards. And she's like, most of it's in science fiction. And I don't know, just it made this a little more interesting to think about this lady who was pretty accomplished at doing this fictionalized story of time travel.
I think this is one of her less science
Least-
fiction-y,
Yes.
least science fiction-y books, maybe?
Pretty science fiction.
Well, yeah, I know it is.
The one guy that reviewed it at the end of our book even went as far as to say that this was not a science fiction book.
Yeah, I was going to say, why is it that everybody thinks
Time travel.
this book is science fiction? Because it's time travel.
Well, if you're hung up on the time travel's not the point. That's just a device
Right.
That's right.
to make it work. I think, you know, I don't know.
Why would time travel not be science fiction?
Yeah, but if she'd
Yeah.
been a witch, I mean, there's all sorts of
Ways to time
Like
travel.
right. There's all sorts of approaches that would talk about juxtapositions positions of reality that that don't define themselves as time travel, but they're alternate realities, and they wouldn't be described as science fiction.
And nothing else in the book but the time travel was science fiction.
Exactly.
Unlike all her other books.
Exactly.
This really didn't feel like science fiction to me.
Yeah, exactly.
It just
yeah.
was a way to get us back to have this woman who's a modern woman go back and experience what it was like to be a slave. And therefore, I felt like I was experiencing it sometimes.
Yeah.
What I liked about the book in relation to today is that I don't have a lot of sympathy for a black perspective about the sins of the whites are inculcated into my living experience relative to their black experience in 2024. But I would have to say this book kind of illustrated the connection between what a black person could feel in 2024, and I'm playing loose with the book, versus their sense of how things would have happened back in the 1800s, 1700s, and so I thought it was, thank you, Jan. This is just a fascinating book. I read it, and I'd always heard about it, but I'd never read it, and I would not have read it unless you brought it up. So thank you. It's just
But
fascinating.
it wasn't written in 2024.
I know,
No,
but
but-
I'm just saying. But that's the beauty of the book to me, is
Yeah.
that it's so relative present day, even though the time travel takes place, whenever that is, back to 1820, the 1818s or 20s, 40s, 50s, 60s.
When it happened,
Right.
it was
18,
pre-Civil War, right?
1840s.
Yeah.
1840s.
Help me remember, at what point did she realize that she went back in order to save herself? Or her?
Oh, I thought
At
from
what
the
point
beginning.
was that?
Pretty early
Yeah.
on. So
How did she discover that?
She heard his name.
But how did she know?
and she recognized some of the names that he was talking about from her family.
Okay.
She had heard those names before. And I think then she realized.
Well, wasn't Alice was her grandmother or her great grandmother?
Yeah.
So she knew her name.
Had to be.
But I mean, I know Rufus is a bizarre name, and maybe that was enough. It was like, this guy says his name Rufus, and maybe you would go, oh,
And his
maybe
last
he's my
name.
great-great-great-grandfather. But that would be a big jump, wouldn't
It was
I
his
don't
last
remember
name.
her actually saying it outright.
it? Okay.
I just realized this is my ancestors, but somehow it crept in.
I mean, by her second journey, she knew she had to go back by then.
Right.
But I right now I can't remember
I can't
how
either.
she
Does
made that
anybody-
connection.
I don't remember.
Remember?
That was wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe she had been
It's a good
doing
question.
genealogy,
Yeah, I can't read it, John. Yeah.
you know, and that she was maybe doing research in order to maybe help. She's writing a book or something. Maybe that was
a
part of
writer,
it.
yeah. But she never even talked about doing genealogy. Either.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I
Good
thought,
question.
Destiny.
I mean, I thought it was such an interesting way to present the horrors of that time period.
Mhm.
But also, it made you realize, black people are still treated badly. But there's also this piece of it, it's like it seems so personal. Like, here's this modern woman, and now when she is thrown back there, she has knowledge of history, and she has education. But that does not keep her from being beaten and treated horribly. She managed to avoid some of it, but in the end, she still is treated badly and sees how badly people are treated.
Yeah, but but to follow on from what you're saying, what I liked about the book was that she developed the cast of characters that she kept returning to in the
Right.
time travel. She fleshed a lot of those personalities out to me, and so they were just, I mean, they were a different cast, but they were just people with personalities in a group, and so some people would be helpful, some people would be
Right.
very venal,
Very realistic. Of how
very
life would be.
realistic, and it
Yeah.
had nothing to do with race, which I thought was kind of interesting, that she would imbue all those personalities in the black side of things, because it wasn't particularly complimentary. I mean, she had friends around, but a lot of them, some of them stole, everybody
Right.
did all sorts of things. And
There were people who resented her
Right,
within the black community.
lots of people.
They resented her because
Right.
she looked like she was privileged.
well, they called her the white nigger, and it was just not very complimentary. And I was surprised that she
was
had that kind of she went to that kind of depth, which was really interesting. I was just fascinated by the book.
Well, I mean, there was the automatic assumption, if you weren't perceived as a norm, beaten up person out slave, then there's the assumption you're a free slave. If you appear out of somewhere and you're different, the assumption is, are you a northern? Are you free? Did your master free you? So, I mean, I think that was their first inclination, was to assume she was free.
Well, and her whole talk.
Until
the
Kevin
way she
showed up,
talked.
and then
Yeah.
she was supposed to belong to him.
Yeah.
But she had this proper English. She had these clothes on that were,
She had
Kind
pants
of.
on.
yeah, she had pants on.
She had an ink
You
pen.
don't
She
wear
had an ink
pants
pen.
back
Oh my
then.
An ink
gosh, I
pen.
love the ink pen.
You don't wear pants.
No, you don't
You
wear
know,
pants.
as a woman back then, you just didn't. So those were a lot of things that set her apart from everybody else. But mostly her proper English that would throw you totally off.
Well, and she could read.
Yeah.
She could read, you know, and
I mean, that ties in with the being a free slave. But I thought it was funny that at some point somebody was saying, one of the slaves was saying, "Does your master make you wear pants?
yeah.
Does your master dress you that way?"
My master loves boys.
Yeah.
Yeah, but interesting because they really did not. They had so few clothes that they weren't. No one was going to give her their dress or their skirt, you know, because they didn't have like an extra anything
No.
to give.
And this is kind of a benevolent plantation, kind of, compared
it's
to,
considered
one of
it's
the better
considered one of
ones.
the better ones.
yeah,
Yeah,
had you been shipped south.
south, it would have been worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was just an interesting perspective. I found it fascinating.
You know, I didn't get to do it enough, but as an author, I thought, okay, so you're going to take, okay, you're black, or you're white, and you make up a black character, and you go and you put them back in antebellum, you know, South. What the hell do you do with this person? You know, and all the things that Octavia did. I mean, she probably struggled to get this to make sense at all, or to weave this, not just the story and the plot, but
Two different
important
time
things.
periods and
Yeah.
cultures and
Yeah.
yeah.
And the more you read, the more complicated her position became, and Kevin's, I think, a little bit. So, you know, everything as an author was very tenuous in terms of, you know, what do we do with these people?
She did a lot of research, didn't she?
Maybe, yeah.
It seems like
I mean, that's what they said in the end.
Yeah.
Did your book have
it had
the review by that guy? It's a my Kindle had 20
Oh, at the end of
pages
it?
of
Yeah.
You know,
a
scholar.
review
Oh,
that
really?
put it kind of all together. I wish I kind of would have read it before, because he describes why he thinks she wrote it, how the research, you know, came about, and little bits about it that I didn't really put together.
Yeah, it was very, very valuable.
I mean, from what little I know about that period of time, I mean, in the racial disparities, it's very accurate. And so, I mean, I have to look for some sort of discussion about the pros and cons. But I mean, I was amazed at her research and the accuracy of her research. I mean, I think she really nailed the. And you guys talked about how difficult it was to read, understandably, but I think she really nailed the times. And so it would really be even more difficult for a person of today to read this book, because we just have no sense of the personal transgressions that happened back then. We just wouldn't understand it. And she put that in the book. I mean, the protagonist goes back and she really has to learn how to survive in this society, and that society is like not, you know,
I don't know.
not
how
much more than 100 years old.
I know she felt. Why did she feel like she had to save them so that she could be born, though? Because she was born, so she must have known that they didn't need saving. But he did keep trying to kill himself, didn't he? He kept getting in fights, and she would find him almost dead.
Every time she went back, he was nearly dead. I mean, pretty
So
much.
that's curious.
That's why
like
she
if
went
she
back.
wouldn't have gone back, would he have? He was in the water face down that one time, drunk, so he would have drowned.
Would
Well-
she have ceased to exist? There's the conundrum.
Well, I mean,
That's the science fiction.
I think the
That's the science.
the implication, to me, is that all these things happened in her past life. And it was part of reality that she was back there in each one of those episodes to make sure that all carried through.
Oh, I hadn't thought about that. She had a past life. Oh, I hadn't.
I mean, that was-
oh,
I
that's
mean-
pretty cool.
Science fiction.
Yeah, that's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
I did not think
What?
about that, but that's a whole
Say it
different
again.
perspective. Yeah.
One of the multiverses.
Like
Yeah.
if
Yeah,
it's-
exactly.
Like if, like,
Exactly.
if it's
Oh,
one
great.
past
Uh-huh.
life,
That's
and
great
I
comment.
can
There with the
recognize
Royals.
these people.
Yeah,
and
great
see that
comment.
They've been in
Yeah.
that life,
Yeah.
in maybe some other role, but yeah.
Past lives are a science fiction.
I'm,
aren't they?
I'm definitely
That-
putting more aspirin
isn't
and
there
ibuprofen
really
in my
different
Yeah.
beliefs
in my
Yeah.
go bag
Yeah.
just in case.
Past lives, is
I have to tell you something. You're
Is
white.
it Seventh-day Adventist?
Yeah, but still, it's
I'm
aspirin.
not aware of any religions
Aspirin's
that
what?
I'm
Yeah.
aware that that is.
I'll be a king.
It's like that
I don't ever.
Twilight Zone episode.
No, usually it's.
The
Pioneer
Hindus thought
family,
you-
somebody
you
said,
came
oh, the
back
guy
in,
goes over the mountain and
different levels.
there's
of
this
time.
20th
Yeah,
century city
reincarnation.
there, and he gets some aspirin and brings it
I
back
was
to
just
this
being over here. with
wagon
that
train family and
Is reincarnation
cures
the
the
same
daughter
as past
who's
lives?
got a fever
It could
or
be
something like
interpreted.
that.
Oh, really? He's
Yeah.
a hero.
Yeah.
And who believes in reincarnation?
Hindus,
Oh, right.
I think.
Oh,
But not
God.
Seventh-day Adventists.
Please don't send me back.
I don't
Oh,
know
I
what-
know what I'm
I don't know what they
thinking.
believe.
I know what I'm thinking.
I don't want to go back.
Predestined.
Oh, you get to do something totally
Oh,
different.
predestination.
Something
Totally
They
different.
You get to be a cockroach.
You have to do this again.
Oh,
Yeah.
good.
But Jan,
the beginning of time.
Middle school. Oh my God.
You'll be a great grasshopper.
Everybody's like,
You can come back as a whale.
but
Yeah.
but if John and I go back, we'll be kings.
so if I do
I mean,
something
just
tomorrow,
saying.
Can I be your
that's out of the
concubine?
ordinary,
Sure.
and I'm messing with
Come on.
predestination.
Something bad is
When
gonna
she
happen.
came back, she was missing her arm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it got stuck in the wall.
Something had to be sacrificed, is
Yeah.
what the guy
That's
said.
what the
Yeah.
author said.
Yeah, because that's a pretty foundational belief.
Yeah.
You gotta
Yeah.
sacrifice. You gotta lose something.
Yeah.
You gotta suffer. Let's keep that story going.
But it wasn't. She wasn't dismayed, which I thought was kind of curious to me.
Dismayed.
Yeah,
She was worried that Kevin was going to be blamed for it.
Right. So,
Yeah.
but she was. It was kind
Yeah,
of.
but yeah, like, oh, I lost my arm, no problem.
Well, she understood the the whatever contract there was,
Consequences.
the science fiction contract. She
Yeah.
understood that.
Some of her had to be left behind
Yeah.
in the past.
Yeah.
Not so much of a sacrifice as just
Yeah.
She could
had
not
to-
could not
she
come
could
back
not
home.
come back completely. She had to.
Were you so happy when she stabbed him to death?
Oh gosh.
Well,
Not necessarily.
I mean,
You weren't?
No.
I mean, to me, it's like there was the big build-up at the end, and she had the knife and everything, and you're suspecting it's going to happen. But to me, it's like,
Do you need to do?
can't. What happens if she kills him?
Yeah.
What happens? And so I was kind of like,
What if the baby isn't Hagar?
yeah,
Well,
Right,
she
or
already
if,
knew
or
the
if
baby
Hagar
was
doesn't
Hagar.
live.
yeah.
I mean, you're rolling the dice. I mean, you got a long ways to go.
I was so happy. I think I could be a murderer this day and age.
Yeah.
I'm
Watch out, Bill.
beginning
Yeah.
to believe.
Bill,
No,
pay
I'm
attention.
beginning to believe there's some people that need to be murdered.
Don't ask her to sleep on the floor.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
no! Don't
That's
treat
it.
her really nicely.
You know, this
What
is,
I wondered is
this
why
is being
why
recorded.
wasn't she responsible for keeping
Oh, that's right.
everybody
It is.
alive from then
No,
on?
but the thing is,
Hagar and Hagar's children.
And then it's going
their
out on the
children,
internet. So
and-
yeah.
Lila now. when
Why did
she's
it stop
here,
with
she'll be walking
Rufus?
to the room
Yeah.
and they'll be talking about Putin.
I kind of
She-
wondered that too.
Oh,
Yeah.
that horrible
What,
Putin.
what
Like-
triggered her
We know he's
to,
horrible because his name is Putin.
to go and come back?
They named him
To
right.
go, it was
Putin?
Rufus
She's
being
sick.
on death's door. That was what triggered her going. Was that Rufus was
Every
about to
time he
die.
had, yeah, she would.
Coming back was she was afraid she was going to die.
That's
She
right.
didn't spend
Yeah.
very much time.
that's how
back
she
home,
got
did
back.
Yeah.
She didn't spend very much time back home once she started, did she?
Well, the time frames were weird because
Yeah.
when she's home, she could be home for seconds, minutes, hours, or a day or two. But when she's there, when she gets back, she could have been gone.
Skipper,
Years.
no, skip her off. You don't
She
get to sit.
she left on her birthday,
Don't
the
let him do-
26th of
No,
June.
skip her off. No.
And then I think
No.
she came back permanently on July 4th.
Inciting you.
Independence
he's just-
Day.
Wednesday.
He's just
Yeah,
so
blame it
enthusiastic.
on him.
Yeah, so that was
Okay,
what,
sure.
8
Okay.
days or that
I
this
thought you
whole
trained
novel
him.
You're
took
the-
place.
8 days.
I thought he was trained.
You are the
In the
like,
present
responsible
time.
human here.
Yeah.
You know, you're supposed
Yeah.
to
She
like
was, in
no,
past time.
no,
Yeah.
Skipper, down,
Not probably
no.
as
Down.
much
What triggered her
altogether.
to
Were your
as
commands
you.
down?
when
Yeah,
she was
down's
like in
good.
death,
Yeah, mhm.
death
When
Or
she
off.
was almost
Down
going
and
to
off.
die,
Yeah.
and the fear brought her back.
Mhm.
That's the science.
Sorry,
fiction
he's
part.
like a butterfly. I'm used
I
to.
know, I
I'm
came
know.
back
used to
together
90
one
I'm used to
time, but
92
one time they
pounds.
came
I
back.
know, yeah.
Because she
Tough.
had to be holding
Not
on
the
to her
same.
to
Yeah,
come
it's-
back.
it's-
'cause
she's
they
almost
were only
not
going
there.
'cause it was-
Oh,
she was-
it's so much
And so
fun.
he was down there for years.
5 years.
He was down there for 5
And
years.
he was building the railroad that got the Underground Railroad. He was working on the Underground Railroad. So cool.
I think I felt too that part of this was Kevin's education, too, not just her, but that Kevin was getting an education about
Yeah.
what was this white guy
'Cause he's white,
married to
yeah.
this black woman was getting an education, and,
Mhm.
and you kind of got this uneasy feeling. I thought at
Could be
the
their
end
undoing.
that he was kind of getting
Wavering.
into it, you know,
Oh.
and
Why did Kevin leave?
leave.
She
Well, he
came back and
moved
got him.
east, right?
Oh,
Why didn't he stay?
I don't know.
Oh, at the plantation?
Yeah,
Probably, I think he's.
I mean, wouldn't you if you were like your wife, you know?
I can't remember what
In
happened.
theory.
There was something that
Yeah,
precipitated
there was
that.
I don't
yeah,
think
there
there
was
was-
a
there wasn't
legitimate reason why he
anything
did.
for him to do or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Or
he
there was
kind was
something.
kind of given
Well,
up.
also
that she was
didn't
never going
she
to come
leave
back.
Did their
with-
job maybe.
Out
She's
of
coming
him.
back for.
Yeah.
She's going to come back here.
But did he know that really?
He should have tried to kill Rufus, and then
He'd
she would've-
already
Yeah,
gone.
exactly.
Yeah,
That was
Oh,
his
It's
goodness.
not
first,
that complicated.
That
Just
was
try to
after
kill the
his
dude,
first-
she'll come back.
yeah.
first trip.
Was Rufus the father of the?
But what if he succeeded in killing
Little
Rufus
baby.
and she didn't come back?
So if
He was the one
if he-
she
if
was
Kevin
there to
killed
save.
Rufus,
Forever in 18.
Huh?
And she
Kevin killed
never,
Rufus.
and she's
No,
not
he should just
even
try to
virgin.
kill him, and then she would
Oh,
come
did-
back.
oh, right.
because
Yeah,
that
exactly,
was
yeah.
what triggered-
try to kill.
That's what triggered.
Strangle him.
I'm
Yeah.
going to try to kill you.
Yeah.
Have you ever read any other time travel books?
Marilyn Lincoln.
H.G. Wells.
Yeah, H.G.
Not
Wells.
H.G. Wells.
Oh, yeah.
Time machine.
The original.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Diana Gabaldon wrote.
Gabaldon.
Diana Gabaldon wrote one of my favorite books at the time, because that was probably 30 years ago that I read it. But they made it a series on TV,
Oh, really?
and she time travels from now back to early England, when England and Scotland were having their wars. And her uncle is one of the. Anyway, that's the only other one
What's it
I have
called?
read.
Back to the
What's the name
future.
of it?
Ah,
Well, Back
Oh,
to
yeah,
the Future.
Gotta get
Oh,
back
yeah, that's
in
very
time.
realistic. Yeah.
Get in the
But
Dorian.
but one of the things about the book
DeLorean
is,
and-
Yeah.
is she went back in time, but she didn't like try to change things. So I'm assuming that the construct of trying to identify Rufus and make sure that he was alive so that she could be alive restrained her sense of I'm going to impact history. I mean, on the other hand, she was very assertive towards the owner, which I was kind of surprised. I mean, the
I was
book,
kind of amazed.
it's a book works on all sorts of
And-
levels.
and-
It's kind of
and-
curious.
yeah. In another vein, did you ever see or read the book Connecticut Yankee and King Arthur's
Oh,
Court
yeah.
by it was
Yeah.
by Mark Twain, but they made a movie with Bing Crosby.
Oh,
which
I've not seen
which
that.
was, I mean, it was made in the 40s. It's a hoot. You should see it. But the main thing is he goes back and he's in medieval England and he knows all this technology. Like he invents a pistol and he knows how to do 20th century technology and science, and that's he becomes a wizard back then, and how did she not? I don't know. It's like
Yeah, become
based,
a witch.
based on that. Yeah, she would have knowledge and she would know things that nobody else did, and she could have exploited that. But that was not the point of this book. So
No.
I understand that.
No, she had a very narrow focus because, I think on an hourly, if not daily basis, an hourly basis, she feared for her life or feared for
Absolutely,
possibly
yeah.
being sold.
Sure.
But so she
Oh my
had
God, yes.
you know, she knew she had to, do something with Rufus, and so trying to keep in a position where you could do that and not, be sent to the south.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
had all her attentions were on taking care of Rufus and then herself.
Well, it'd be hard to keep the book in focus. I mean,
Yeah.
once you go back, there's so many. I mean, there's so many shades of culture. I mean, you could spin off in so many directions.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing that she could do what she did and bring it down, because it's not a particularly long book, and there's not a lot of
Well,
dry areas.
He
I mean,
likes
it's
that.
pretty curious.
He's well. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot.
I do too.
It's very good.
I thought
Thank
it
you,
was a
Jan.
really
It was really
good and
But-
provocative, just made you really think.
But she,
And a big question to me was, and I read that summation too from that author, but a big question to me is, why in the hell did she bother to have Kevin hardly in that book at all? I mean, he could have been a bystander, a semi-rescuer, so to speak, as she came back or something. But
You mean,
she,
why did she have him in there at all?
yeah, other than just kind of in a semi-support role and some, to help
Well, I thought it was like
weave the plot.
you were saying, Jan, the perspective, what he learned from, because he was white and had really no understanding what that would be like until
was the
she went there. That would be my take on it. That it didn't play a more important
well,
role.
that added another aspect or
Well, it's kind of
facet to the story, because she was married to a white guy, right? So
It had to be
and
somebody.
she
that
and the whites
close.
were treating her like shit back.
Well, it's kind of a sly attempt at saying, you guys need to read this and pay attention, because here's this character, and it was kind of a foil to be able to say, as a white reader, if you're reading this, I'm passing this on to Kevin, but I'm actually passing it on
Oh,
to you,
you
the
got
white
him
reader.
up there. Oh my God.
But I thought it was interesting too that
I thought he was
Kevin
trained.
was
Can I play smart?
kind of almost played the role of
I think I'm
a.
going to stop.
I thought he was
Finger?
trained. I thought he was trained.
What am I trying to say?
I'll try.
Kevin helped her get her career going and things. So in
that's
a
enough.
sense, it was like he was a white
Oh,
plantation
Master.
owner, master, yeah, and helped. I thought that was an interesting
So
thing.
with,
So what is what has changed in a sense?
I gotta take a picture of that.
I mean, totally. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's totally different, but yet the
Can I
concept
cut
is
a
the
little
same.
bit here?
That
I just wanted to consider
he supported her and got her career
Let's make it out
going.
here.
Things.
Yes, please.
so with that in mind, what
Totally
was all
healthy
the
except for a little
conflict
mold.
at the end of the book with Kevin and her? What was, the last 20 chapters or something, this
Nice.
total conflict? I mean, not total,
It
but
is, it's very great.
Conflict.
I'm gonna do one more
Yeah.
picture.
Yeah, did it
because
come-
interpersonal difficulties
One more
between
picture,
in the
guys.
marriage.
Well, and maybe that happened because of
Bill.
what they experienced
Yeah.
together.
We're still
You know,
talking
what he saw and what she experienced. That might have been what made the
I mean,
conflict. at the
what-
end.
Who was right and who was wrong?
Yeah. Yeah.
John,
It'd be a lot. It'd be a lot to put. It'd be a lot to put down.
Yeah.
Oh,
I know.
I gotta
She
look.
already did this.
She did.
But she did. She wants to do it again.
Yeah.
So, that's when was reading through some stuff, and there was I ran
Oh,
across
it's
this
great.
critic that didn't like the book.
Good.
Oh, cool.
Good.
And,
First time.
Such a
Um,
nice
magical,
little
isn't it?
intimate.
Why?
Yes,
You
nice.
like our
well,
courtyard?
The first time we
Love
I mean,
the season,
I'm
yeah.
pretty sure this wasn't her
It's the
best
first
work.
party of
It's
the season.
just-
Outdoors.
And I think, let's see, he says perhaps the book's biggest flaw is its treatment of the relationship between Dana and Rufus, since it's central and the only potentially interesting thing here. Consider it. Dana grows almost motherly towards Rufus, but he continually disappoints her, culminating in his attempted rape of Alice.
Filming in his attempted rape of her, I
Yeah.
would say.
Yeah, he just, I don't want to criticize this book for what it isn't, except that in one case,
Except that I am.
is that it's not good.
It's not good.
Well, it's not good.
Who said that?
What a jerk.
This Alex Chevernet.
Who's he?
Who in
Yeah,
the
who
heck
is
is
he?
he?
Who is this guy?
Nobody.
But I
It's a
mean,
good book.
it was a good book. I mean, I enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was fun. And
I think
everything.
it had flaws. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah,
I wondered from the beginning when they first came to the plantation and Kevin was established as, or the first time they went together to the plantation and Kevin was established as her owner. Why didn't he just say, "I'm taking her north"? You know,
Yeah, there's some
I'm going to
pieces-
free her,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
you know,
Well, she wanted to stay there.
Big
though.
holes, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Rufus and Alice had to have sex and a baby.
Mm-hmm.
That had to happen. So
Yeah.
wherever this couple went, Alice and Rufus had to go with them.
Yeah.
You know, because
Yeah.
otherwise she dies and
Right.
all of her her ancestors.
So she couldn't just go north. She had to stay there and protect
Yeah.
Rufus from himself.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to beat up this last question I was trying to get to about what happened to the relationship, the marriage. You know, where's
Oh,
the marriage going?
I think it was definitely rocky at the end. I
But here is before we get into that,
Dana?
on page 57, there's a quote I marked. She's periodically talks about them as a couple and how they met, blah blah. But on page 57, she's saying he had written and published 3 novels. He told me, and outside members of his family, he'd never met anyone who had read one of them. They'd brought so little money that he'd gone on taking mindless jobs. The books had brought so little money. They took on mindless jobs like this one at the warehouse, and he'd gone on writing unreasonably against the advice of saner people. He was like me, dash, a kindred spirit. So here we're kindred spirits on page 57, but are they kindred spirits on page 257 when they're going through what I consider a great deal of strife? I mean, that I struggled with that last part of the book greatly.
But she sees the whole picture. So even though in the end they were struggling, she had already said they were kindred spirits. That's why she named the book Kindred.
Yeah.
I didn't remember that. I was wondering why they named the book Kindred.
Kindred,
Well, I thought it was
yeah.
Kindred because
just
of
Rufus.
Rufus.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know?
Kindred.
So
It's
in
kindred on several levels.
Yeah.
Rufus is her kindred also?
Well, he's her
What's
kin.
kin?
I can.
He was her great granddaddy or something, right? I mean, you know.
And she killed him?
By
But
rape.
how in real life did he die? She can't, like when they go back and tell Rufus's story, he was killed by a slave.
The house was burnt, right?
Oh, that's
And-
right, and they never,
No one knew that
no
he was
one
just burned
knew
up.
how he was. That's
Yeah,
right.
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that's
I need
what
to
was
quit
bothering
reading
me
when
was
I
like,
It
if
could've
you
been
kill
better.
him, how are you going to get out of this? And I was
That's how-
surprised that's how she
Yeah.
got out of it. Yeah, I'd forgotten about that.
Because they didn't have arson specialists back then.
Yeah.
Who could.
You could go figure out, oh, he died before.
So it'd be interesting. This is something I would not have asked for the 20 years previous, but I'd kind of like people to go back and read the last part of the book and think about their relationship. Will it last? Is it over? Why? What's going on?
Yeah, it was hard to
Because
tell.
even
Didn't
if they're
sound good.
kindred spirits, they could break up.
Yeah.
Well,
Because
people-
just because you're a kindred spirit with someone doesn't mean you're going to work out.
Well, she's 22, he's 34. So from that dynamics right there, she's declared them as kindred spirits right there on page 57. But she's a 22-year-old.
Is she 22 throughout that whole book?
No, she's 26 when this first thing happens.
Even so, that's so young.
Yeah.
Yeah, but think of everything they went through.
Yeah.
Who
She
talks
seems
about
so,
stress
she seems
today?
so much older.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
much older.
Yeah.
She did.
Yeah.
But also, she's going back as an educated woman
Right.
to a plantation where they weren't educated. So she would seem wiser and older in the
Right.
plantation setting anyway. But yeah, I thought she was older than, I thought she was at least 36.
Yeah, and one of the things I really liked about the overarching idea of the book was, there's lots of people that think about being black today. Lots of people think different ways about slavery and how that impacts today in America or wherever. But what she's done is she's taking a liberated woman, ostensibly, didn't have to be, instantly put her back in the slave days, and voila, you have no power. I mean, to me, that was like, holy shit. You would think, like Jim had said, you could use your science or your writer's ability or your something and
Get out of it.
well, not get out, but to save yourself while you're saving Rufus. But
Yeah, you don't dare do that when you're black.
yeah,
It's supposed to be
But she did. She carved.
education.
But to follow on what you're saying, she carved out her niche of
Nanny kind
of authority, with the overseers and all the
The cook.
slaves by
I'd befriend
by
the
just
cook
being
of the house.
by just being a person. I mean, she really played
Yeah.
human behavior. I thought, and so is that because she's educated and because she's modern and she's more aware? I mean, I don't know. I don't know why that is, but she clearly parsed her value instantly, which you could say is kind of a false, I don't know, kind of a false comment. But she parsed her value and then manipulated that going forward. I mean, she ended up writing the letters. She ended up saying no. She ended up saying if there's any physicality, I'm gone. I mean, her independence in modern age translated to independence in back then. But who else was independent back then?
but I like that idea too. That had she not had the ability to write, those letters would not have been written. That was
True.
necessary. So I'd forgotten about
Wait,
that.
he never
But they
mailed
never
the
sent them.
letters.
Yeah.
He never mailed what letters?
Yeah. Well, I mean, didn't she do some sort of freedom to free the slave? She wrote freedom.
Oh,
She freed this slave is
Papers.
free. Yeah.
Yes.
The emancipation letters or
yeah.
something.
Yes.
She forged
Yeah.
Yes.
papers.
And so she could not have done that had she been illiterate or I don't know what it would have been.
It's interesting. She transported her back to 18. I mean, that's the construct of the story, but she transported her back to 1840s with the talents she had modern, and they dovetailed with what the needs were back then. And I think it's pretty amazing.
Very creative writing.
Yeah, I was pretty
It was
impressed.
Does
Well
anybody-
done, Jan. Well done.
Has anybody read anything else by her?
John gets some credit.
John picked a book.
Have you read?
Together.
She picked it.
Together.
Have you read anything else?
She
by
asked.
You
her?
haven't picked a book in
I
a
haven't
really
read-
long
I
time.
haven't read anything
We
else by
pick
her.
it.
You usually
Yeah.
No, when Jen picks all those Swedish books, have you had a say in that?
No, I haven't read those.
Which Swedish books?
All right.
The Scandinavian books, you went through a period.
And
where
that's
there
the way it
really a lot
was.
of-
May
Oh.
24th,
No?
2024.
Gusto.
And you were
Gusto.
there.
What do you think? Oh, what's his name?